Good morning, everyone. Wow. They asked me to come and talk at a small event in Poland. And this is probably the biggest event I've ever talked at, so it's great to be here. So my name's Luke, and I'm head of innovation for Samsung Electronics, which is probably the most fun job in the world. And I always get the same question whenever I speak to people, which is, what is the next big thing in electronics? And my answer is always the same. It's right here. So I think the great thing about Samsung as a company is that we're always, the next big thing for us is always on the market already. And if you're a developer or a marketeer, this product will still be here in 4 years' time. People will still be using these in 4 years' time. And so when you're thinking about your next development or your next big thing, focus on the now and focus on delivering products for what already exists. And don't think so much about the future. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is how we at Samsung generate new ideas and create new things. If this is working. Yes. So some of you will be familiar with the story of Samsung. So this is our chairman, Lee Kun-hee. And he took over Samsung in 1993. And the first thing he did was he did a world tour. So he went to all of the countries of the world and looked at how are we doing as a company. And the one thing that was clear was, if there was a Samsung product in that store, it was at the far end, normally quite low down, sometimes covered in dust, and it wasn't really something that people wanted to own. And so this made him very angry, and he called all of the executives of Samsung, this is 93, to a big meeting in Frankfurt, where he talked at them for 3 days. 3-day-long speech about how the company needed to change and how we needed to get a new philosophy and think differently about our customers and our products. And the message was really clear, which is you can't just change something, you need to change everything. And this is, a friend of mine is a really amazing pianist, and she can play pretty much anything. But there was one particular Beethoven piece which she could never play. And I saw her at a concert about 1 year ago, and she was playing the impossible piece. And we caught up afterwards, and I said to her, well, how did you manage to play the impossible piece suddenly? And she said, well, it's interesting. I had to learn to play the piano from scratch again. So I had to unlearn everything I knew and relearn how to play the piano. And it's the same with business, and it's the same when you're developing things for markets. We always imagine that if we try a little bit harder, if we work a little bit more, we can get a little bit better. But the message of Lee Kun-hee and the Samsung philosophy is, it's not good enough. Sometimes you need to tear everything down and start again from scratch. And it's a very important philosophy. But then, interestingly, when that message sent out, it didn't really do anything. Like, nothing happened. The company didn't change. And in 1995, there was a big problem with a product recall for mobile phones. And at this point, he'd had enough. And so he took 6 months' worth of inventory, mobile phones, printers, screens, made a huge pile somewhere in the Samsung buildings. He took all the manufacturing staff and gathered them around the edge, covered it in petrol, and set fire to it. And said, these are the last bad products this company will ever make. And as you can imagine, after that, things did start to change. And so the company got better and better, the quality got better and better, and now Samsung is the biggest consumer electronics company in the world. People always talk about how do you stay ahead? How do you keep fast? And an analogy I hear a lot is the tortoise and the hare. Everyone will know the story, Aesop's fable. Good old tortoise, slow and steady wins the race. Well, we don't really believe this at Samsung. The message of the fable of the tortoise and the hare is not that slow and steady wins the race. It's don't go to sleep. So if the hare hadn't stopped, if he hadn't gone to sleep, he would have won the race by miles. And so the important thing is, how as a business, or how if you're developing applications or marketing to people, how do you avoid going to sleep? How do you keep your energy? How do you keep going? And you need some sort of business caffeine. So you need to figure out what is it that keeps us awake. At Samsung, what keeps us awake is our customers. And so the process we have for developing new products is very rooted in what our customers want and what they think. This is a 1976 MGB GT. This was my car for many years. I sold it recently. And this is possibly the worst car ever built. It was built in Britain, which never helps. Any of you who've ever owned a British car, they're terrible. Don't buy one. But this was the worst car ever built. And there were so many things wrong with these cars that the list is endless. But one thing in particular was the battery. Now, the hole that the battery needs to go down into is exactly the same size as the battery. Which basically means if you want to take the battery out, you're going to lose the skin on the back of your hands, because the hole's simply not big enough. This car was manufactured for 25 years. So for 25 years, this car was on the market. It was re-engineered 3 times. When they went to the US, they re-engineered the whole car. They then did an update in the 1970s, and they re-engineered the whole car. And they didn't change it. Right until the end, for 25 years, this was the same. It was just as bad for 25 years. And the one message you should take away from this slide is, people will live with bad for a really long time. And so we imagine when we create something new and a new experience for our customers, which solves a problem for them, that they should embrace it and they should be excited by it. But never underestimate how long people are prepared to live with bad and how much they're prepared to overlook it. Because when you're driving this car, it doesn't really matter. Every 2 or 3 years, you have a problem. But also for innovation, I think the important thing is to consider a very broad spectrum of things. So people always think innovation is about coming up with the most amazing product. It's all about having the most exciting new thing. But you can focus your innovation on any number of things, and there are very successful businesses. Ocado in the UK is a grocery delivery company. All of their innovation is around supply chain. They have no real product innovation. They sell the same things as their competitors. All of their innovation is around supply chain. You can innovate around design. You can innovate around manufacturing, around the way you sell your products, around the retail experience that you create. You can innovate with the materials you use. Again, the Galaxy S5. You know, people always ask about metal. Everyone's obsessed with metal phones. People love metal phones. But the real benefit of a polycarbonate phone is that actually this is waterproof, but I can still take the back off. Now, there's no way you can do that with a metal phone. And this is material innovation. And it's important, and it's not to be overlooked. But also important is the way you look at the world. The typical innovation process for a company involves like a number of stages. So they'll get the research guys to go and talk to some consumers. Go and tell us what consumers think. They'll then get the marketing guys to develop some new product concepts. And then they go to the design guys and say, right, here's our product concept. Go and make it. Go and design it for us. At Samsung, quite uniquely, all of those functions, plus some more, are involved throughout the process. Now, the message here is really about diversity. We're Samsung. You know, we have a lot of resources. And you guys may not have that to hand, but what you do have is the people around you. You know, I look at the speaker list for the Infoshare, and it's all men. There's maybe one woman on the speaker roster. And I personally find that a shame. I think that is a shame, because I think, actually, you know, half of your market are females. And, you know, your market's going to split down a whole bunch of different ways. Older people, younger people, kids. You need to seek those guys out and seek out what they think. So my team is incredibly diverse. We have people from every different country in Europe. We have men, women, older people, younger people. We take graduate trainees purely because they're young, not because we think that they have some special innovation capability, but because we need young people in the group to help to inspire us to think of new things. And so it's incredibly important to have as diverse a group as possible. If you can't have that group, go and find them. Go and stand on the street and ask people what you think. And the problem you have is, if you surround yourself with people that think the same way you think, then everyone agrees with you and you learn nothing. And your products don't get better, they stay the same. And everyone's patting each other on the back saying, yeah, good job, guys, you're doing a great job. When you get to market, you fail because you are not your market. I am not the market for anything we create in our team, and I know that. But some of my team are. And so it's very important to just get as many people involved as you can when you're developing new things. And the result of that is clear. So we've been focusing a lot on consumers. We've added over 1.1 billion in incremental profit purely through innovative new features, solutions, and product concepts. So that's profit added into Samsung purely through thinking about our consumers. So it has real commercial value. You need to invest money in it. And people talk a lot about process. What's your innovation process? Everyone's very excited about innovation process. And the reason people like process is because they can buy it off a shelf. You can go to a company and you can buy a process. But the real value is in experience. And again, I come back to the point around diversity. The more people you have on your team, the more opinions you have about your products, the more experience you're bringing into the mix. And you're not going to like a lot of the things that people say, but it will help you to make your products better. Another model we use a lot is, what's really important when you create something new? And there's really only two important things. Differentiation. How different is what you have versus what other people are offering? And relevance. Is it something I actually need in my life? Very, very simple, very clear. But here's the problem. Most innovation that takes place, people think only about difference. And they talk only about difference. They're like, oh, our application is different to this application because ... The problem with focusing only on difference is you end up with what we call a gadget. And these are the kind of fun things that appear on the front cover of magazines, which no one ever buys. Those are the products which people look at and go, oh, that's a good idea. I'll never buy it. Similar problem is if you have lots of relevance. So this is where Samsung used to be. When I joined Samsung in 2010, we had a real problem with relevance in that our products had features that our customers loved, but they couldn't find them. So I'd spend time in people's homes and we'd talk about refrigerators, for instance. And we'd get onto the brand and we'd say, okay, well, what refrigerator do you have? And they'd say, well, I don't really know. And we'd talk about Samsung. And they say, oh, does Samsung make refrigerators? And we go into their kitchen, and they have a Samsung refrigerator. Similarly, we had a guy who, he had one of our DVD players, and he was telling us how he wanted to go out and buy himself a hard drive recorder. And I said to him, well, you have one within your DVD player, right? You can just plug it in. Really? How exciting. He was really genuinely thrilled. But he had no idea because we hadn't done a good enough job of communicating the benefits within our products. And so again, over the last 4 years, a lot of our focus has been, how do we help people to understand what they actually already have? Because our products are loaded with really cool features. If you've ever dug through a Samsung mobile handset, a Samsung smartphone, you're going to find some absolutely amazing features. Even I find amazing features I didn't know were there. And here's the problem when you come to marketing your products. So this is just a really typical store. And let's say you've invented the best camera in the world. Ultimately, that's where it ends up. And if you're a consumer, that's bewildering. It's very, very confusing. You've got a choice of 100 products. You've got all the different little bullet points telling you what the product's all about. And we've seen people going, oh, I'm buying this camera. You say, okay, well, why do you choose this camera? Well, it has more bullet points than the other cameras. So it must have more features, and it must be better. So they were literally counting the number of features. They didn't really care what it said. And that's what happens when people get confused. It's even worse online. If you have a mobile application, you get that much space on Play Store to tell people everything about it. And so you have to be very, very clear what your application is doing that nothing else can do. Otherwise, you'll never cut through. So this is a real problem. Again, with these energy labels, it's really funny, like wonderful European initiative, common energy labels across all appliances. Consumers have no idea what it means. None at all. And so this appliance here is a B, and there was an A appliance next to it. But she wanted a silver one. And so she's like, well, I'll put up with the worst energy to get the silver one. And that's how people really make decisions. And similarly, all of our innovation, so we might spend 2 or 3 years working on a new product, and that's what it's reduced to. 4, 5 lines of text on a shelf edge to explain 3 years' worth of technical development, amazing new features, wonderful things which we know people get excited about. We've given them to people. They've tested them in their homes. So we know people love them. And that's it. That's what they see. Similarly with solving problems. So 3D TV was sort of a huge push for Samsung a couple of years ago. And people kept on saying to us, oh, you know, we don't really like the glasses. Can we get 3D TV without the glasses? And the answer to that is yes, you can get 3D TV without the glasses. But the real problem is you have to think about what happens when you take the glasses away. And what we see is that if a family gathers around together to watch a 3D movie and they're all wearing their glasses, it becomes a family event. And everyone's focused on the movie, and they're talking about the movie, and they're interacting with each other, even though they have the glasses on. When you take the glasses away, you get the picture on the left. People drift away from the movie. They pull their smartphones out, their tablets. They start to browse eBay. They start looking on Amazon for, you know, a new pair of curtains. And so you need to be careful when you change something, what effect are you having elsewhere? And do people really want that? Are people really going to appreciate that if you change it? I'm going to show you a short video. And some of you will have seen this. What I'm encouraging you to do is look a bit deeper, because I'm going to talk about this afterwards. Hopefully it works. Yeah, here we go. Can we get sound? Yeah, here we go.
Napkins, clean it up, it'll be fine.
Fine, there's coffee inside of my computer. You know what? Just get away from me. Just get away from me. Just get out of my way. Oh my God. Just get away from me. Just get away from me. Who can do what I can do.
So that's a really good way to promote a film, by the way. So this is the kind of videos we get sent all the time, right? So everyone's had these in their email inbox. We look at these slightly differently. Something really interesting is going on in this film, which has changed a human behavior which is over 20,000 years old. So when I saw this film, it's really interesting. It's something I'd noticed before, but it's something that is kind of bubbling up over time. Standard human stress response in a difficult situation is fight or flight. Okay, either you take the situation on, or you turn around and you run away. And that video demonstrated that absolutely beautifully. So you may have noticed the guy in the high-vis jacket with his scaffolding pole, who very bravely put himself in between the situation and the people behind him. He was going to take on that situation. Don't worry, everyone, I've got this. Looked a bit scared, but he was taking on the situation. So he was classic fight response. Most people, the sensible ones, turned around and just ran away, freaking out. But there was another behavior in there, which is really quite new. People putting themselves in mortal danger for a video or a photo. People putting their lives at risk to get a video on their smartphones or a photo on their smartphones. And this is really quite interesting and new. And why this is important is we see that at Samsung, and it's quite early for that trend. It's not something that most people have picked up on yet. And so when people say to me, this whole 0.3 seconds autofocus thing for your new phones, fastest autofocus, what does that really mean for me? Well, what it really means for you is that when that's going on in a coffee shop, your phone's not zipping in and out of focus trying to find what to look at. Or when someone's fallen over in a funny way, you're going to capture that video much quicker and much more easily. Similarly with gear. Swipe down, tap, you have your photo. It's so quick and it's so convenient that it taps into that trend absolutely beautifully. And I see, it's interesting, I see people talking to me about selfies. Everyone's into selfies at the moment. Selfies were a trend to know about 4 years ago, because 4 years ago, you had time to build something to take advantage of that trend, which is why all of our phones now have front cameras on them. And so you need to be well ahead of the trends. And when you look at the content inside of these videos, that's when you start to see what's really going on. You start to see how humans are behaving. And then you go out into the world, and you see it in others. So I was at a party at the neighbor's house. Can we get back to the slide? And one of my neighbors, Frank, he showed me, he said, "Oh, mate, you need to see this photo I've taken. It's incredible. This car crashed right in front of me on the M25 motorway this morning." So what was his response? Did he stop and help the injured people? Did he pull over and wait for the police so he could tell them what he'd seen and help them with their investigations? No. He took a photo whilst driving, putting himself, his passengers, and everyone around him in danger so he could get a photo of the accident that had just happened in front of him. And this is fast becoming normal behavior. And again, that's why things like fast autofocus, being able to take a photo with your gear, are so important, because they really tap into things that are going on in the real world today. So back to my 1976 MGB, the worst car in the world. I was talking about how it's important to look for difference, and I guess there's 3 messages that I'd like to leave you with. Firstly, you need to look for difference. You need to seek out opinions that differ with your own and that clash with your own, wherever you may find them. The second thing is focus. Focus on the one thing that you can do that no one else can do, and raise it all the way up to the top of everything you do. That should be all you ever talk about. Have one message, because people don't have time to listen to you. When you have this much space on Play Store, when you have a tiny online shopping, you have a tiny little window, you can take a refrigerator that would fill this stage, and it gets reduced to a picture this big with 4 lines of text. And that's all you have to talk to your customers. And the last one is around where to look. So the really interesting thing about the battery on this car is it's not at all where you would expect. And all of the forums are full of people who've just bought one of these going, "My car won't start, but I can't find the battery. I don't know where to look." Because uniquely, the battery is hidden underneath the back seat. You have to lift up the back seat to get to the battery. And it speaks back to experience. Unless you know this, you will never find it. You can search all through your car. That's the last place you will ever look. And so experience is really, really important. Thank you very much.